Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. And this will be my part 2 of the video on Rahu in the 5th house, Ketu in the 11th house. The audio was distorted in the previous video. So we're going to try this again, and hopefully I can give you some clearer audio where you can understand what's being said in the video. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. So before we get into Rahu in the 10th house and Ketu in the 4th house, we first have to understand who these entities are. So Rahu and Ketu are actually the same entity. They are one, and they are coming from the story of the churning of the ocean of milk, where there was a great battle between the Devatas and the Asuryas, and there were many casualties on both sides. So the Devatas were looking for a solution to this problem, and they found that the solution was to churn this great ocean. And from this churning, there were many gifts that came up from the ocean. And one of these was the solution to their problem, which was the amrita, the nectar that gives immortality. And so the plan was for the Devatas to gain the assistance of the Asuryas to churn this great ocean. But the amrita was only for the Devatas. And as the amrita came up from the ocean, the Asuryas quickly grabbed it and ran. And so Vishnu came in and gave support to the Devatas by disguising himself as a beautiful woman named Mohini. And he was able to trick the Asuryas. He charmed them with his attractive looks through this Mohini figure while secretly giving the Devatas the amrita behind his back. But there was one Asurya that did not fall for this, by the name of Swarabhanu. And Swarabhanu knew that there was something going on. And so he disguised himself as one of the Devatas and sat next to the sun and moon, and he was able to get a drop of the elixir before he was caught by the sun and the moon. They exposed him as an impostor, and as a result, Vishnu beheaded him. And usually, as Vishnu beheads an entity, the entity is liberated. But because this Asurya took a drop of the elixir, part of him became immortal, but another part of him became stuck in this reincarnating cycle. And so he was trapped in the reincarnating cycle here on Earth. And this is what this dynamic of Ketu and Rahu is all about. Rahu is representing this incarnation. It is what brings us into this world. Rahu is very worldly. It's all about our desires, our ambitions, about the things of the outside world. Rahu is an extroverted energy. Rahu also is about our destiny, our purpose. It is our unfulfilled desire that we are drawn towards in this lifetime. We have karma that we were not able to fulfill in a previous life, and this is where Rahu is taking us towards. But at the same time, if we lean too far into this desire, we can become obsessed and over-attached in this area, which leads to disappointment and misfortune. So in this way, Rahu is also about illusion and deception. Ketu is the liberated half of this being, the tail of the serpent, which is all about our past life experience, our roots, our foundation, where we are coming from. It is all about the past. And Ketu is related to deeper truths, to research, to analysis, to digging deep below the surface to find deeper meaning. Ketu is detached and dissociated from this material existence. And so in that way, where Ketu is in our charts, we have a tendency to detach in that area, to neglect that area, to abandon that area. But at the same time, because Ketu is our roots, it is the source from where we are coming from, we also have a feeling of comfort and safety in that area where we tend to escape back into that area when Rahu becomes overwhelming for us. So it is a back and forth dance between these two positions of Rahu and Ketu until we are able to learn these karmic lessons to balance these two areas. So it is very important that we are understanding the lessons of Rahu and Ketu as far as where they are placed within our natal charts. So what does it look like to have Rahu in your 5th house, Ketu in your 11th house? Well, first we have to start off with Ketu, because Ketu is the source. It is the root of where we are coming from. So our past life karmas are connected to Ketu. And so Ketu in this 11th house shows that in a previous lifetime, you were all about your gains, your desires, your success, all about building up wealth and your social networks. And so in this life, you are naturally drawn to this area of groups. You can be a part of charities and organizations, political groups, all sorts of groups related to connecting with people and giving back to society. Also, with Ketu in this 11th house, you can naturally attract wealth. You can have sudden windfalls of money coming into your life. Ketu in the 11th house also can make you detached in this area, though. So with Ketu in the 11th house, you may acquire a great deal of wealth, but then become detached from it, where you actually are able to save and build your wealth through this position. This also can make you detached from groups with time, where you start to lose the sense of value in those groups. Ketu in the 11th house can also create karmas around your siblings. This 11th house is all about your elder siblings, and the 3rd house is about your younger siblings. So you may have some conflicts around your siblings, particularly around your younger sibling, where you're putting your sibling on a pedestal. So it's very important that you are not getting into this, as this can lead to disappointments where your siblings are unable to live up to your expectations. This can also play out in your relationships, where you can fantasize and idealize a partner, but then you also can become detached in some way from your partner as well. So there can be strange circumstances around relationships. You could end up with more than one marriage with this position, as the first marriage may be completely incompatible. Ketu aspecting over to the 3rd house also is going to give you a ton of energy, specifically a ton of mental energy, where you can be someone who is very curious, someone who loves to learn, to explore. You can always be on the go with this position, because Ketu is a lot like Mars. It is a fiery planet, so it's going to give you a ton of energy through this position. As Ketu aspects onto your 7th house, once again, this can disturb your relationships. So you want to make sure that you are being present in those relationships, because there can be strange circumstances. Ketu in the 11th house makes you a visionary. You are able to see from a much larger perspective. You can be very futuristic with this position. But sometimes you also can become detached from reality, where you are just in this world of dreams and ideas. So this becomes all about putting those dreams into practice so that you can manifest this into your reality. And that brings me to Rahu in the 5th house. So Rahu in the 5th house can disturb your education in some way, as it sits here in this 5th house of education, aspecting onto the 9th house of higher education. So you can have breaks in your education. You can find that conventional or ordinary education is not for you. And so you may be more inclined towards a tech school, towards an unconventional education where you're able to express yourself, where you're able to use your creativity, to use your craft. And with this position, you are exceptionally intelligent. Rahu is going to increase everything that is related to this fifth house. So this can enhance your creativity, your intelligence, your acting skills, everything that is here, even your athletic skills for some of you. So Rahu here in this fifth house is going to make you, again, a visionary. You are able to think outside of the box. You are able to think in a unique way. And at times, others can find it difficult to relate to you or to understand you because you have these different ideas, these different points of views that other people can see as strange or unconventional. Sometimes your behavior also can be unconventional, as Rahu is aspecting onto your first house of self. So you are a very unique person, and this position is all about using that uniqueness, about tapping into that individuality, that creative potential that you have. And so what's happening between this axis is a dance between Rahu and Ketu, where you are pulled back into the 11th house of your groups and social situations, but then also at times pulled into this 5th house of your individuality, of your creativity. And so with Rahu in this 5th house, this can attract fame to you, where you are meant to be in the spotlight. You are meant to express your creativity, your intelligence. This can make you an excellent leader, an excellent guide of some kind, where you are able to share your insights with the world. But through this position, you want to make sure that you are focusing on yourself and your needs. Again, there's a tendency to hide away from this destiny of Rahu by going back into the 11th house of groups, hiding behind people in this area of social networks and groups. But this becomes all about cultivating your own intelligence, your own character, your own creativity, your own individuality. And so it's very important that you are getting in tune with who you are and beginning to tap into the skills and knowledge that you possess. Rahu in the 5th house can make you someone who is extremely competitive, driven. You are all about going after what you want in life, your ambitions. And again, these are going to be exceptionally strong during the Mahadashas. So for those of you who are running a Ketu Mahadasha, you will see that this position of Ketu, the 11th house, will become exceptionally strong. And those aspects of Ketu will especially come to the forefront during that Ketu Mahadasha of the 3rd and the 7th house. When you run a Rahu Mahadasha, it will strengthen this 5th house, and you will see the aspects of your 1st and 9th house come into the forefront as well. So the aspect onto the 9th house, again, is going to cause some issues with father figures, with mentors, teachers, guides. So you can find that you are trying to please, to accommodate your teacher or your father figure, but there is some difficulty around this. And this is something that can bleed over into your relationship with your children as well, where you can try to relate to your children but have misunderstandings, where you're unable to relate in this area. But this is something that can improve with time. There are karmas around this area because this was an area that you were unable to fulfill in a previous lifetime. With Rahu in the 5th house, you can have a strong desire for children, but you can also have complications around having children. And so there can be all sorts of situations where you have to have children in a unique way through C-section, through surrogate. You could also have a child that is coming from a relationship. So you can end up getting into a marriage where your partner already has a child. You could adopt, you can have a foster children, you can have children from foreign places, Again, this is going to create all sorts of unconventional situations. And the most unconventional that it is, the better it is for you, because there tends to be difficulties in this area. Rahu in the fifth house can also attract to you foreign partners. This fifth house is all about romance and dating, but Rahu is very unconventional, very much out of our comfort zone. So you can connect with people long distance, through foreign lands, through traveling. You can connect with people from different backgrounds. You can also make a great researcher. You can be very much interested in scripture and mantra and ancient texts. You can make breakthroughs and discoveries with this position. With Rahu in the fifth house, you are a risk taker. You are able to take on opportunities. Again, this gives you a great deal of courage, a great deal of determination in this area. And so this is excellent for you to gain situations, to gain wealth, to gain fame. But again, this becomes about being able to move into this area of expressing yourself instead of expressing based upon how you are influenced through the group. And you can find this big dynamic where at times you are becoming detached from others and becoming more self-oriented, and at other times you are blending in with the group and losing yourself through this. So this becomes all about balancing these areas, being able to tap into that creativity, that individuality, that uniqueness that you have, and sharing it with the world.